Welcome to The Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Well, hey, everybody. It's Holden back here again with The Sober Unicorn. I'm just wishing everybody an absolutely incredible day. If you're not having a good day, I do hope that it gets better. So, of course, as you all know, I released an episode this past week with Elisa, and everything like that. But before moving forward and releasing new episodes, new content, everything like that, I did actually want to come on and discuss with everybody why I chose to take essentially a month and a half sabbatical, and give everybody kind of an update on what's going on with me. Several people have reached out kind of concerned and wondering what happened and what's going on. So, as you all know, there was an episode called I Fucked Up, which discussed my relapse, my first relapse actually. And then shortly after that, there was an episode with Daniel that discussed kind of, again, he interviewed me on the podcast, and there was two other relapses that kind of happened. No, sorry, one other relapse that kind of happened in Florida, last time I visited, in September. Well, I was back in Texas for about a month, and another fuck up happened. And the disease of addiction in that time for me was insane. Of course, we all get a little bit crazy. And when that third relapse happened, it took me out of the recovery game from almost about a month and a half, actually. So I put myself into a position that I should not have put myself into. And I paid the consequences for it. So in the midst of that relapse, I, of course, chose to move to Florida, which I have done, and I'm absolutely ecstatic that I moved. So let's go back a little bit. So after the second relapse happened, I had to really take a look at myself and my motivations behind the podcast, and take a look at my own ego and my pride, because the entire time of doing this podcast, it was to help other people. It was to show that there is people in recovery that can get sober, stay sober. And I kind of used the podcast as my kind of like saying, oh, I could never relapse because of the podcast. And the thing is, that is completely inaccurate, as we can see. And when the third relapse happened, it was subconsciously, I think my mind was just saying, well, I'm about to move. Fuck it. Thankfully, I'm sober again, of course, completely clean and serene. But I want to use my situation and my fault, my falling down, to show people that you can pick back up. The first two relapses were just one day, or the one day for the first one, a weekend for the second one. But the third one was a month and a half long. I went deep down the rabbit hole. I isolated myself. I mean, I sat in a bedroom with everything turned off, so I could hear if my roommates were coming up the stairs, so I could hide everything, and just in case they were to open my door, then I was Febrezing so they wouldn't smell the smoke. And I mean, it was depressing. It was sad, because in my addiction of meth, I was a party person. I was very sexually driven. I was going out, partying, and enjoying myself in that phase of addiction, until it was fun until it wasn't fun anymore. I became very isolated from my friends, from my family, And when it came time to move, I used up until the day before I started driving to Florida, which was a 23-hour drive. And I wasn't able to say goodbye to the friends that mattered the most. I wasn't able to say or spend the time with the family that I needed to spend time with before leaving because it's going to be a little while before I can get back to Texas. Um, I wasn't able to spend time with those people because I was too focused on getting high. I was too focused on getting my next hit. So let me tell you, it is relapsing is not worth it. Um, I was 9.5 months sober before the relapsing started. I am now, I just, this past Saturday, the 14th, I believe it was, celebrated 1 month clean here in Florida, which I am super, of course, happy about and proud of because Florida was where one of my relapses started. So I knew that coming down here could have been very dangerous for me, but I made sure to put myself in a position of success. I chose to move into sober living to surround myself immediately with sober individuals, um, and to for that accountability aspect. I mean, living here is not going to keep me sober. I have to put the effort and the work behind it in order to maintain sobriety. But I did want that accountability and the fact of I don't want to come down to Florida and try to get those old contacts back. I don't want to reach out to the people I used with when I was down here before. Um, so I just moved to halfway, and of course, I immediately dove into a different 12-step program this time, but still a 12-step program nonetheless, which I feel this 12-step program encompasses what I need the most. I haven't drank in over a year and a half, so the other 12-step program that I did take part of did work to an extent. Um, but when the struggle became something else, and I needed more, and I needed a little bit better understanding of what I was going through. Because addiction, yes, is at the end of the day, addiction is somewhat all the same. But when it comes to the motivations behind the addiction, for me at least, it's a little different, and my motivations were of a different sort. So, um, so I moved down here and got into a 12-step program. And have been doing actually really well. My mental health has improved immensely. The reason, again, like, of course, I took a month and a half off of the podcast. I mean, Charlie's episode that I recorded, I literally, this is how fucking crazy I am. I literally recorded the episode, and as his episode was converting to the audio files for me to use and edit and stuff, I was getting dressed to go get high. I was getting dressed to go relapse. Um, and so the thing is, at that moment, I felt fraud. Like, I felt like a fraud. The thing is, the Sober Unicorn is a sobriety addiction recovery podcast. Yes, relapsing is real. Relapsing happens, and relapsing is a part of a lot of people's story. Um, but I didn't want to continue to come on, record episodes with people, and lack the motivation, lack the enthusiasm, lack the happiness, lack the fun. Um, I don't want to come on and record about sobriety, um, and how to stay sober, how I continue sobriety without being fucking sober. I mean, so I took that time to myself to recollect my thoughts, um, and to now come back on here and hopefully people can tell in the way I'm presenting this that I am much I am in a much better headspace than I was before. I am much happier. I do not whatsoever regret moving to Florida. I am very happy with this decision to move out here, and I've met some incredible, incredible people in recovery here. Let me tell you, people, If you have not visited Florida, I recommend you come down to South Florida and hit up a meeting or two if you're in a 12-step program because the recovery down here in Florida is so fucking big and the community and fellowship is so strong down here. I mean, the biggest meeting I've been to was like 108 people. The smallest meeting I've been to was about 35 people, which is crazy. Um, and in the meetings, they say if you have a year or more clean, to raise your hand. And I would say a majority of my meetings, 60% of the people are raising their hands. So something that they're doing here in the Gold Coast is working, which is incredible. And that's what I want. I mean, I want it to work. I want it to stick. Um, and I want my journey and the people that I speak to and bring onto this podcast to help others worldwide. And that's why I do what I do. Um, it's not for myself. It's not to boost my own ego. It's not to pat myself on the back. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes. And I just want to be able to use my story or somebody else's story. That's why I bring so many guests on the show, is to reach to so many people possible. We all have different stories. And if you can resonate with one story off the podcast that helps you, then what we're doing here at the Sober Unicorn is totally worth it. So moving forward, of course, we're going to continue to have guests on the podcast. I am actually trying to step away from the time of sobriety discussion here on the podcast because I feel people in addiction or people that are addicts of any sort, whether it's alcohol, meth, heroin, whatever, it shouldn't matter whether the person has 2 months clean time or whether the person has 20 years clean time because they're still in recovery. They're still trying to better themselves. And I think a lot of people focus so much on the clean time of somebody to validate their sobriety. And guess what? Like, there are some people that I've met that have some years clean time that are more fucked up individuals than somebody that has 6 months. So if the person does so choose to share their clean time, then I'm all for that. And I'm also going to try somewhat to step away from the actual drug of choice. Because I don't want, just say if your struggle is heroin and the person that I'm interviewing is struggles methamphetamine, I don't want you to feel that you can't connect with that person because the drug of choice was different. Because at the end of the day, they're both drugs. And at the end of the day, you're both addicts, or we are addicts. So I don't want any guest or any listener to focus on the differences of the stories and focus on reasons or ways to separate themselves from any of the episode. So I mean, I want to come on. We're addicts, whether we're addicted to alcohol or addicted to pot, addicted to heroin, meth. It's still classified an addiction. So we will most likely start introducing ourselves as addicts rather than alcoholics. I believe my intro, I'm gonna have to re-update and figure that out. But I do hope that the changes here at the Sober Unicorn do not deter you from coming onto the show. We have been overwhelmed with the amount of support and the amount of people that have reached out to us to to share their story. I mean, almost every single one of my guests on the show have reached out to us via social media to come onto the show to share their story. And we have listeners that have reached out to thank the podcast for a certain guest because they resonated so much with their story. So I mean, I don't ever want to have anybody feel they can't listen. If you have any questions, concerns about what we're doing here at the Silver Unicorn, you can always reach out to us. The social medias are at the end of the episode, but It's The Sober Unicorn Podcast for Instagram, and it's thesoberunicorn@gmail.com for email. Um, and we are getting a phone line here soon if you ever just need to call and talk to somebody. So just keep listening, and I hope that what's gonna happen in the future will help. So there it is. But yeah, I mean, Holden, I myself fucked up and continued to fuck up, and realized that he had a huge part to play in it with his relapses, and my motivations behind them. But guess what? I'm taking the proper action that it's going to take to get myself sober again, and to stay sober this time, and um, hopefully to continue this journey of recovery, this very fun, exciting roller coaster of a damn journey, and hopefully continue to post here at the Sober Unicorn and carry the message that it is possible, and that it is recovery is a possibility. So I hope everybody stays fabulous, and I hope you have an incredible week. Stay blessed, stay up, stay smiling. Have a great night. Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast, or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes, as well as our very own sober-owned shop, featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember, everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.